So cleans are one of the most controversial lifts for athletic development. We end up on either side of the spectrum, a phenomenal stimulus or it's not worth it. The arguments can kind of go round and round. I think there's a bigger lesson that we can learn. I want to talk about that lesson, not through just sitting here ranting, but expressing a story. Why if we worry about the wrong things, we're losing sight of the forest for the trees. Actually matters in the lens of player development. And beyond that, how we can use that as information to create athletes that are more robust and less anxious. But we're gonna get into another set here.
She's very athletic. I have never like chatter.
Baseball players, one of the main things that gets talked about with the power clean or the snatch is the idea of vulnerability. We don't want to willingly put ourselves in this vulnerable position. It could put extra stress on the shoulders, back, whatever it is. It's not a necessary risk. On the opposite spectrum, we talk about the stimulus that it gives that you can't really replicate anywhere else. Will Rattel, very smart guy, he has a lot of arguments for the power clean, the connotations of teaching it, the skill acquisition level of it. And honestly, I'm not really that interested in fighting. For me, the thing that underlies all of it, which is what matters more, in my opinion, and that word comes down to the idea of attachment. Whether you fall on the spectrum of power cleans are great, do them. Power cleans are evil, avoid them. Comes back down to an idea about what you've done and what you think will be better for XYZ or yourself. Take you back to when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, and I swore by power cleans. I believed that power cleans were gonna be the reason I would throw 95. And more specifically, the power clean over the full clean. Had a long history of cleaning because I played football in high school for a few years and just knew how to do the pattern really well. I cleaned until my end of my junior year of college. I did it behind my coaches' backs because I felt like it was going to be the best thing for me. Whether that was right or wrong is really not the point. Looking back at it, it's not something I would probably do again, but again, the idea though that actually matters is because I felt like it mattered. That's one of the toughest things that we have to manage as coaches and manage as athletes is our feelings and our attachments to things. I would wake up at 6:30 and lift before lift. Also, I could go in and do power cleans because I felt like that's what I needed to do to be the best version of myself. Now, looking back 5 years ago, that had no validity. It didn't matter. And to me, that's the point that I'm trying to really get across is that these things matter way less than we actually give them credit for, and they're arbitrary at best. Point doesn't come down to is this movement a good movement or a bad movement. I was attached to the power clean. If I did it, I would throw harder. I'd be better. I know that now, and it's not true at all. Exercise to create a stimulus, to create an adaptation that I wanted, that I felt like it would get. Did it help? Yeah, absolutely. The idea, though, that I needed it was my fault. And it comes down to this simple understanding is that if the athlete thinks it will make him better, it will. But eventually, it could turn into poison, where dosage makes the poison. And that's kind of the point is that, well, eventually I stopped caring about the power clean, but I found my attachment to something else, which was weighted balls and plyo balls. I felt like weighted balls helped me throw harder, and I needed to throw harder to be good. I needed to throw harder to get drafted. It was a very slippery slope and a very slippery line of thinking that X, Y, and Z thing, plyo balls, cleans, overhead press, bench press, doesn't matter, made me a good player. When the reality was, I was a good player. These were just a tool to help me, get a stimulus. I don't need them. I don't need to throw weighted baseballs before I pitch. I don't need to power clean in the off season because it's just another tool in the toolbox. A lot of athletes' lives are getting impacted because they think these things matter more than they do, and that's the bigger lesson. You have to be careful about what we're pushing into athletes' minds and letting the main thing be the main thing. As an athlete, you have to be able to go beyond an exercise, a recovery modality, a stimulus. If I didn't run or throw plyo balls, if I didn't do my routine, I felt like I was going to perform poorly. Only reason that mattered was because I felt that. I had a self-fulfilling prophecy that I would pitch poorly because I didn't do X, Y, and Z. By arguing about arbitrary things, notion in athletes' minds that these things matter more than they really do. Honestly, the most important thing for an athlete is just training your ass off for 5+ years. And most just haven't done that yet. And I think that's the important part. As coaches, we can always do a better job of, and as athletes, you need to remember is X, Y, and Z is not making you good. You're a good player. You can start to understand that a lot of these things will fall to the wayside because the reality is this attachment to this thing is ruining your career if you let it. And athletes deserve better than that. Remember, guys, that a lift is just a lift, throw is just a throw, a drill is just a drill. It's not that they're special, it's what they help get out of us. But you already have that inside of you, and learn from my mistake that it's not as big of a deal as you think it is. Appreciate you guys. Leave any comments down below, any topics you would like me to. See you guys next time, and remember, stay savage.